a dynamic African landscape, two mighty giants share a home. They live and clash in a river world defined by the seasons. And survival is an ongoing battle, fought on many fronts. This is East Africa, following Tanzania's waterways inland to a river at the mercy of the sun. Here, two of the continent's most impressive creatures live side by side. The hippopotamus and the Nile crocodile. Both creatures need waterways, and when parts of the river slowly evaporate, wet spaces are at a premium. The hippos are tolerant of their reptilian neighbors, and even curious. But while both species need access to the drying river, it's primarily the hippo's home. Water and mud protect their skin from the merciless rays of the sun. Crocodiles have evolved a different strategy for avoiding the oppressive heat. They make shelters in the riverbanks, custom-made croc caves where a sun-dried reptile can keep cool. And as prime real estate, they're well defended. The caves are deceptive from the outside and can be up to 10 meters deep. Some can house scores of crocodiles. It's the largest predator known to build such shelters. The bird population here grant the river with a variety of fauna, including the grey heron. Oxpeckers keep hippos free from ticks and parasites. Ubiquitous all over Tanzania are marabou storks, easily preying on the river's dominant fish species. Catfish. These fish, trapped by a natural dam in the river, keep the crocodiles fed if larger prey is unavailable. The fish eagle lets the larger marabou stork do the preliminary work. Then it's just a matter of a swift snatch. At the natural dam, it's a free-for-all. Again, the fish eagles let others do the work. There's no real resistance from the larger bird. Fish eagles are even prepared to raid from each other, though in this case, not too successfully. And even from the jaws of a croc, there will always be the one that got away. The birds here are varied and plentiful, but it's broadly a croc and hippo society. Hippos are basically vegetarian, but nevertheless aggressive and unpredictable. A dominant bull is surrounded by females all huddled together en masse in shrinking pools. A young hippo spars playfully with older siblings. With no tusks to speak of, the young one can't inflict any damage. This is purely high spirits, and a method of determining its status in the pod. For the older bachelor members of the herd, real violence and the threat of violence is the way to get ahead. The confrontation starts with head splashing. Next comes the wide threat yawn. As his rival starts the same ritual, the instigator moves up to territorial scent marking, covering the widest area with his dung. The hippo's incisors can inflict terrible wounds. But if aggression can flare up quickly, it can fade out just as fast. The muck distribution isn't only an aggressive behavior. At rest, hippos spray routinely. And this is the reward if you scare off rivals or fight them off. Access to females. The female is mostly submerged during the coupling, coming up for air when needed. In 8 months, she'll give birth underwater to 1 offspring. Neighboring male crocs air their grievances with full body slams. The reptiles have many vocalizations, and the mouth gaping is a clear threat display. These clashes are usually disputes over territory. A croc mother is in the process of transporting her hatchlings to water. Just minutes old, these infant reptiles are totally dependent on their mother's help. She has guarded the nest for 3 months. As far as infant predation is concerned, now is the most dangerous time. With a precious mouthful, she starts the many short return trips to water, leaving the nest vulnerable. Gently released underwater, the first wave of hatchlings makes for the bank. Another reptile, the monitor lizard. Bad news for a croc mother. It's a nest raider. The scent of prey suddenly makes contact with the predator's forked tongue. The monitor is looking for the unguarded nest. But croc mothers are more than capable of defending their exposed young. But the monitor will keep searching. The odds are against the crocodile mother. Monitors can be responsible for taking as much as half the clutch. A thick-knee parent defending its own nest has a crocodile-sized problem. However, it's never going to win a staring contest with this giant reptile. But vervet monkeys can be moved on with a simple wing display. A fish eagle, patient and alert, stands near a potential glut of prey. While one croc mother fills her throat pouch, another approaches. That's enough to make this raptor move on. Croc females assist each other in ferrying the newly hatched to the water. They'll guard their babies for several months. It's a great deal of maternal care for such small survival rates. Only 1/10 of the eggs will hatch, and only 1 in 100 of the young will grow to adulthood. Biding their time, fish eagles continue their bullying tactics and pick fights with each other. The juvenile fish eagle is already showing the same raiding behavior, known as kleptoparasitism. Crocs have the ability to launch themselves vertically out of the water. Low-flying fish eagles trigger this response. But the most destructive to the eggs of the Nile crocodile, the monitor lizard, has found an active nest, unguarded and full of promise. The nest's female finds herself in a tight spot. Several of her young are distributed close by, while a large cannibalistic male waits for an opportunity. It literally falls within reach. The young crocs stand very little chance without their mother's intervention, and her attention is divided. Walking in front of this hungry male seems like the best way to get eaten. But this hatchling manages to dodge some terrifying attacks. Climbing a sheer bank wall will take him out of reach, for now. The mother cannot move, making things easy for the raider at the nest. hatchling loses its grip. But the male is taking a short break. And if things were not fraught enough, an unfortunate move by the mother's tail sends the hatchling scuttling to steeper areas. One wrong step here will make things very easy for the male. With a mouthful of mud to show for his 4 lunges, the male backs down. The lucky hatchling is now tempting fate again, at his mother's side, but heading back down. Surely luck like this must eventually run out. But the little fellow must have a guardian angel. The male makes one more move, but all he gets is yet another mouthful of mud for his effort. The male moves off, but the mother's problems are not over yet. If the shells are soft enough, the monitor will eat them immediately. The mother makes her way back to the nest. Why see off one nest raider when you can see off 2? But she's too late to save some of her eggs and a hatchling. The fish eagle has claimed its young prize. Despite the setbacks, croc mother's instincts compel them to continue until all hatchlings have been taken to the water. She's surprisingly delicate and gentle. One of the most fearsome sights in nature becomes a temporary nursery. There's still more work to do, and more predators to thwart. With pools drying out, she doesn't have many options close to her nest. And she'll have to keep an eye on this smaller female, waiting to chance her luck on a tasty morsel. Baby crocs are born swimmers, and once released, their instinct is to gather near the bank. Some need a little more encouragement to take the plunge. The smaller female takes a message. And a second delivery. In croc society, being bigger almost always has the advantage in aggressive encounters. For the sake of the young, the mother has to deter all comers, even the returning big male. But this time she's more emphatic. It's enough to put him off. He takes his frustration out on the smaller female. Bee-eaters witness more maternal defense from the croc mother. She'll keep predators at bay as much as she can. For the sake of the next generation. The next generation of the hippo is almost always a single offspring. As long as the babies stay close, hippo mothers rarely have to chase off predators. But they do have to steer well clear of fights between bachelors and dominant bulls. The biggest risk to a young hippo is to be too close to a pair of fighting adults. And this short scrap gets physical in no time. A mother croc with a mouthful of eggs has to sacrifice her young to defend herself. Her opponent is likely to be another female defending her own hatchlings. Aggression rises as the water levels fall, as crocs are forced into smaller areas. A Nile crocodile's bite force is one of the strongest on the planet. With mutually gripping jaws, the bigger animal will always have the advantage. Escaping without significant injury isn't always the result. This unfortunate croc's entire lower jaw has been rendered useless in a fight. Hippo injuries are common too. Tusks can rip through skin like knives. The front of this croc's lower jaw is now a useless appendage. And yet the croc has managed to survive here, mostly on fish and scraps. Further up the river, what was mostly display is now out-and-out combat. Hippo aggression is so ingrained that once the instigator has chased his original opponent away, he simply carries on intimidating the onlooker. This big bull has been in many fights. But the new opponent is not backing down. Despite the threatening bluster, there has been no physical contact. The instigating bull backs off. Oxpeckers are quick to take care of past wounds. The new opponent makes himself scarce. But the curse of old age or death by natural causes catches up with everyone. A young hippo has lost its mother. Good news for the crocs. They start their free meal slowly, and where access is easier. Hippos display a curious behavior towards their dead, one very much unknown to science. This intimate attention suggests an intake of minerals. Such aggression at this time may be the ousting of non-family members. The bereaved calf will stay close to its dead mother until forced to leave by advancing crocs. And reptile numbers continue to swell. Still, the calf stands its ground even after being investigated by a reptilian nose. Once the party's in full swing, it's time to leave. The flesh on the carcass will be completely devoured. Things are getting serious between a young contender and an older, larger bull hippo. These are no preliminary threats. This is no holds barred. And the older bull, past his prime, knows it. If the younger antagonist can force the bull to stand down, his status goes up, and he will gain access to females. Exhaustion robs the confrontation of its ferocity. Adult hippos only have two real threats to their well-being: other adult hippos and the effects of the sun on their environment. Water slowly evaporates, leaving behind thick, viscous mud. Space is now at a premium, and despite the conditions, catfish have evolved to survive in such an unlikely environment. These hardy creatures have little to fear from hippos. But the marabou stork is more of a problem. The fish's vulnerability is almost wholly due to their visibility in these shallow, muddy pools. With mud levels this low, any movement is like the ringing of a dinner bell to most avian predators. Unlike most fish, the catfish breathes through its mucus-covered skin, a trait known as cutaneous respiration. Birds squabble over food. Africa's biggest reptile is facing up to the continent's best-known big cat. The lions are feasting on a dead hippo, and sharing is not in either predator's nature. Another larger dispute is going to get ugly. Stealth may gain a mouthful for the Nile croc, but both apex predators instinctively know the risky cost of an all-out fight. Lions try and dissuade the encroaching crocs with claw swipes and attitude. But armor-plated Nile crocodiles stand their ground. As one of the lionesses breaks off, the crocodiles maintain their patience. But the spoils are dwindling. Boldness may be rewarded. The dynamic of power shifts subtly in the advancing croc's favor. But the possessors of a carcass are in an unassailable position, if they are still feeding and powerful enough to defend it. But the crocs will have their moment. They have outlived the dinosaurs and survived long enough to prove the hardy endurance of an 84-million-year-old reptile, despite the many battles they have to fight. In the short term, seasons change, but Nile crocodiles stay true to their prehistoric natures, as do their neighbors, the hippos, in this turbulent African river battlefront.